Hello and welcome to the Calmcast, a time to feel calm and think clearly. I'm Claire Downham, the Queen of Calm, a transformational life coach. I was a burnt out head teacher who finally made the journey to calm after years of trying, and I want to prevent you from having to do the same. The Calmcast is a series of short explorations, gently guiding you back to your natural state, which is calm and clarity. Just listen like you would listen to music, with an open mind and curiosity. There's nothing else to do. Now let's relax into today's episode. So today's exploration is entitled Stories. And I'm not going to, there's going to be no fairy tales or anything, although that is a great analogy for how life really works. There is so much going through our heads all day, every day, and it's all stories. All of it. And to have this human existence means that we can't always see it. That's not possible. But every time we do, there's just freedom, really. And I suspect you have had that experience. You have had that moment where you've seen through a story that you have been telling, and maybe the story's lasted a few days and there's been an accompanying uncomfortable feeling. But every time you catch it, there's relief. Every time you realize that terrible tale about the future that you have created isn't true, there's relief. Every time you step into a place where the little voice in your head was telling you couldn't go, there is relief. Every time you realize that anything that you think about the contents of somebody else's head is a story of your own, not of theirs, there is relief. And that relief does not come from changing that thinking, manipulating that thinking, trying to make that thinking go away. It's just from noticing what a load of old tosh it actually is. That's all that's needed. And then there's freedom from searching and creating another story. I spent years looking at myself, deciding that there were bits of me that were not okay, and trying to find the story that was the reason why I was the way I was. Searching and searching, which is a natural human thing to do, because I think wherever we create a space, whenever we create a space, that our mind has to fill it with something. And it fills it with the old tosh that was there before, really. Like my story that when I was searching for the reason why I wasn't motivated and I didn't think I was good enough, well, that was what, the behavior was not being motivated enough and procrastinating. The story underpinning that was I'm not good enough. That's why I'm not achieving what I should be achieving financially or in my business or in life or whatever. And then there was this exploration to find when I had learned not to be good enough. And that exploration took me many times into the past. And usually to the point of being 3 and my brother being born and the impact that had on me, and that old story. Suddenly I wasn't quite so special and therefore not good enough because they had to have another baby. That was kind of the Claire was pushed out at 3 years old kind of story. And I even went back and in the desperation to fill that space, which is always there inside us, I actually went back to a memory and made up a memory that could have never existed because it involved two people being together in the memory who weren't alive at the same time. So I'd made something up to try and answer a question. I'd made up a story to fill that space. And that's what we do, don't we? The intellect wants a definitive answer to many, many things. And maybe that's one story that we don't need to have. Because the truth is, there is no answer to why you are the way you are right now, other than your response to the thinking that looks real to you in this moment, whatever that might be. And that can be the thinking to do or not do something. That can be the thinking to get angry with somebody and shout at them. It can be the thinking to eat the cake when perhaps the cake isn't the thing that our body really needs. It doesn't really matter what it is. But we could spend the rest of our lives doing that story creating, trying to find the story that fits the behavior that we don't like, or the thinking we don't like, or the feeling we don't like. Imagine that. I mean, I don't need to imagine it actually, because that's pretty much what I was doing for a really, really long time. Trying to create stories that could explain away why I was being the way I was being. And somehow by finding those stories, making up those stories, the idea was that I would somehow feel better. I would resolve it, work through it, and therefore overcome it. And that literally could have been a never-ending story if I hadn't seen what I'd seen. And what I've seen is it's all a story. And that story that we have running through our head absolutely is made of thought that has come from the past. But you can't intellectually know where it came from. That is a never-ending story. It is the never-ending story. In that search, you'll never get there. And, it's so complicated that we can never know. But in the moment, we can see. Every time we can see, oh, that's just the story again. I don't need to engage with that thought that's popped into my head. It's just habitual. It's just been there a long time. And we don't always see it that quickly, but it sometimes takes a bit longer, but that's okay too. It's all okay. There will be a moment when you see through it. But when you realize the nature of the stories, the seeing through it just gets a little bit quicker. And that's where I'm pointing you to. There's a lot of work to be done, either finding the story that fits why you are the way you are. That could be a never-ending search, or doing something about the thinking that appears in your head or the behavior. And what I'm just experiencing now is that there is something about seeing through thoughts, seeing through those stories, because the alternative is to pad them out, to add more to them in the exploration of them. If they're trying to find the answers to it all, there's just more noise. But they're just thought. It's all thought. And it's got this will-o'-the-wisp, cloudy nature to it. as soon as we start to look in this direction, we start to see thought for what it is. And then those stories have a natural propensity to fade because they're thought. And thought is moving. It's an energy moving through us until we grab hold of it and stop it, of course. So the invitation always is just to notice, some of your stories, some of them, in fact, most of them are probably pretty repetitive and habitual, have been around a while, but they're still no more solid. They just keep turning up, but they're no more solid in each moment. There's always an opportunity to see through them. Thank you so much for listening. There's nothing to do now but bring some awareness to how this is working out in your life. Listen regularly to experience longer and longer periods of calm. This has been the Calmcast with Claire Downham, Queen of Calm. Take care and keep listening.